Welcome to BADM 614, Health Services Management. So we're now into week 7. So let's go ahead and do a recap of the reading from week 6, and we'll talk about the portfolio project that's due at the end of week 7 here. And also there's a slight change to the syllabus. So my error is your gain in this case. So we'll talk about that at the end. So chapter 12 is about the role of the project manager. And chapter 13, motivation, teaming, and the project team. So about team dynamics and how we can best use our team. And then chapter 14, leadership and power. So a lot that we covered over the last week. And let's go ahead and dive into that. So chapter 12, the role of the project manager. So the skill set. Project managers have a pretty unique skill set. Excuse me. Where they can do a lot of multitasking and have certain skills that take time to development. No one has these skills by birth. It takes time to further develop these. But then again, project management is not for everybody. Some people like the chaos that project management brings. Others don't like that. So you have to look at yourself or whoever you're choosing to be a project manager and determine if that's the best route for yourself or them. So keep that in mind. Roles and responsibilities for the project manager. Well, number one is communication. Anywhere from 50 to 75% of the time, you're doing some form of communication. You're sending emails, you're preparing reports, you're going to a meeting that someone else is holding, you're holding meetings, you're talking with your people. You're doing some form of communication half to about 3/4 of the time. Now, in the time that you're not doing that, you are probably planning. You're planning the next week's work. You're planning the overall project if it's a beginning. You might be trying to replan some of your project because you're ahead of schedule or you're behind schedule. It really depends on what's going on with your project. But you're always trying to plan. Make sure those resources are available for when your team needs to use them. That way your project can keep making forward progress. Sometimes you need to do some estimation too. This is really big in the beginning with that work breakdown structure, the budget, all of that. Because, we need to figure out all this. So that way we can make an effective push for what kind of budget and timeline and where the scope should be of our project if we need to adjust it. So there's several methods. We talked about estimation already in one of the previous chapters. So if you want a refresher, just take a look at that again. There's also a lot of resources about estimation on the internet, but probably the best place to go is a subject matter expert. So they know about how long something's going to take, regardless of what it is, if it's within their field of expertise. So ask them. They're a great resource, and they're probably better than what you might come up with. Because if you have no idea what you're doing, chances are you're going to underestimate. It's just the nature of things. So, and then we do even more communication, status reports, status updates, talking to stakeholders and others that have a vested interest in our project. Yes, this kind of goes back to that communication thing, but you have to realize that we provide a lot of the status and tracking of our project, either by entering it into a system where a stakeholder may be able to log in and check things out, or we have to go and talk to the stakeholder or make a phone call or send an email. So we have to provide these updates. So, excuse me again. Chapter 13, motivation, teaming, and the project team. Well, we have to find out what motivates our team and ourselves. Usually we can figure out ourselves pretty easily. Are we motivated by working hard and getting to that bonus? Are we motivated to get that recognition in front of our peers? What is it? Myself right now, since I have a 22-month-old son, is about getting the monetary award or recognition so that way I can put it towards my son's college fund. College is only getting more and more expensive, and he's not even 2 yet, so we don't know what direction he's going to go. Is he going to go to a trade school, or is he going to go to become a lawyer or a surgeon, or, what direction is he going to go? I would like to have the kind of funds available where he can choose whatever path he wants. And the financial side is not the burden. Will we be able to save up that kind of money? I hope. The stock market's been kind of doing a beating on, at least my personal portfolio right now. But, everything should turn around. And hopefully inflation doesn't kill us over the next couple months or year or more. And, we can get things back where they should be, especially like at the December 2020 or the previous December, I was seeing 25% returns. Now I'm down 33%. So I'm not doing so well, but I expect it to come back because of past performance of the S&P 500. Anyway, that's kind of getting off track, but you can see that's what motivates me right now is to save money for my son's college education. You might be the same way with other things. Maybe you want a boat, a bigger house, want to work hard so you can get that better position, whatever the case may be. That's your motivation. What are your people's motivation? Are they trying to, do good in their job so they can get their promotion? Or are they trying to get maybe a merit boost to their pay? What is it? Or do they just want to do a good job and be recognized in front of their peers? Now, they could be the person that just wants to work hard and be privately recognized, by having you bringing them into your office and saying, hey, you're doing a great job. I really appreciate it. If you want, you can take Friday off, or, you can take a day off. Just tell me what day you want. It's not really that big of a deal giving a day off, but it might mean the world to that person because now they can go to, a soccer game with their kid or something like that, because normally they miss them and now they can spend that time to go see their son or his daughter or whatever the case may be. That could mean the world to them, more than money itself. So find out what motivates your team, and that will help you when you're trying to get your team to do things. So teams, team formation is a highly researched thing. And we started off with these 4 categories. We had forming, storming, norming, and performing. And then later down the road, they added this adjourning, which doesn't kind of go with the rhyme that we were going here, but they added it. Adjourning is simply the team breaks up and goes back to where they were before they were a team. So, but forming, we're trying to get the right people onto the team. So that goes into the next bullet point. But it takes a little bit of time to get everybody on board. Think of your own job. You probably had to go to some orientations and some other things just to get into your companies that you're at and, get all the human resource stuff done. Now, it might have been boring. It might have been really good, depending on your company and what you had to cover. But, it has all that stuff. That's like the forming stage. You're getting, you meet your coworkers on the team. Then you have storming. This is where people start to loosen up. They're not trying to be all that politically correct and not try to offend anybody. If they have a strong opinion, they're going to say it instead of being quiet or try to give something in the middle of the road. They're going to say, oh, this side of the political spectrum is great. This other side's not so great. It doesn't matter. They could say, we like this kind of food and we hate this other kind of food. And someone else loves that food that the other person hates. And you just have the storming over what may seem silly little things, but you need to keep an eye on it. Otherwise, just let it go. The people need to realize and understand each other. And once they can do that, they'll start to realize how to work with each other. They might say, okay, well, because we have a diverse group of people here that are very strong on politics or have strong opinions on politics, we're not going to talk about politics here because politics has nothing to do with our jobs on this project. They may come up to a unwritten or unverbalized acceptance of that rule, self-imposed rule, and so it's normal for them now. And they start moving to that point where they're working well together, that well-oiled machine. And sooner or later, they're going to move into that performing stage where they know exactly what they need to do. They know what everybody else is doing. So when it comes to a certain part of work, they pick up the ball and run with it, or they hand it off to the next person. And everything works out great. So, and then, of course, there's that adjourning phase, which came in later in the development of this team formation. And people go back to where they came from, or they move on to a new position or whatnot. For whatever reason, the team separates. So getting the right people on the team is essential. But you also have to recognize the perfect team for the beginning of a project may not be the best team for the middle or the end of the project. So you might have to switch people out. Think of a basketball game. The coach is always throwing in different players depending on how the game's going or how the players are performing themselves. If the star player is getting tired and they're already have a good lead, well, the coach might pull that person out and put in the next player so that star player can get a rest or a break. You can do the same thing with teams. You can send a person back to their department and you can call them back perhaps with an agreement with their department head to the team when you need them. Or you just needed them for a certain part of the project and now that part's done, so you don't need them anymore. So your team is going to change throughout the project. It's very rare that your team is going to be the same from the beginning all the way through the end because of people's specialties. So you want to develop your team. So this might be giving them training, sending them out for certifications. Think about your field. What certifications are valuable in your field? It could be board certification. It could be being able to give vaccines as a pharmacist. It might be a compounding ability as a pharmacist. I'm trying to think of some medical things that could, or be getting an administrator certificate. I know there's a couple higher end certificates for hospital administration. This certifications, all they are is basically a verification that the person has a minimum set of skills, right? It's the ongoing training and so on and so forth that helps develop your team further. So once somebody gets that certification, maybe they can give a training to your team. It could be. And then those team members may be able to move on and take that certification and so on and so forth, right? Kind of like that chain letter thing that happened many years ago. One person gets it, they train 5 more people, those 5 people train 5 more, and we keep going. So develop your team. And it will be a good bonus for your team because they may have been wanting to get that training for whatever reason, and because of the cost or whatnot, maybe their home department wasn't willing to pay for it. Who knows? All right, so chapter 14, leadership and power. So a lot of people think that if you're a leader, you also have power. And if you have power, you're also a leader. Kind of like the leadership versus management. But when being a leader, you should know what your leadership style is and the style that your people will react to. So depending on your leadership style and what your people react to, you may modify your leadership style to maybe be somewhere in between, and your people adjust also. It can be very, it's a team effort. I mean, that's the easiest way to put it. So like for me, I'm more of a situational leader. So I'll look at a situation and I'll decide how to lead that situation depending on it. If everything's going good, I'll probably just observe and say, hey, you guys are doing a great job, and leave. Because there's no reason for me to be there as a leader or manager. But if things are going wrong, I might step in and actually start working with them until things get back going right. Or I might just actually direct how things need to go right, depending on the situation. So I could be very uninvolved or extremely involved, depending on the situation. That's my style. But some people need you to give them direction. Others don't want the direction. They just want them to know, go ahead and start doing it. People are different. You gotta understand your people. Leadership versus management. So a leader is not always a manager, and a manager is not always a leader. So leader is basically somebody who's just recognized for their skills. The people look up to them. They might not have a management position or a supervisor position, but they're kind of seen as one of those people that leads. Then you have management who actually have the official title. And so they're kind of seen more as administrative, because management is a lot more administrative. So you have to look at it differently. Leaders generally don't have official power where managers do because of the nature of their job. So that's why I put in here the different types of power in the next one. Your book didn't really explain it and the outcomes of it as well. But if you use certain types of power, you're going to get certain types of reaction. So if you use reference or attraction power or expert power, you're going to get commitment from your team. So you guys being medical experts in your chosen fields, pharmacist, administration, or medical providers, you're experts in those fields. I mean, like the other day, I'm getting over a case of food poisoning. So I went to the urgent care, and the nurse practitioner there told me, this is what you should do, avoid this and do that. And I didn't know any better. All I knew was I hurt, and that advice was supposed to make me feel better. I mean, and actually, down the path to getting better. So I'm still hurting now, but hey, I got a job to do, right? So that person's expert's knowledge is why I trusted them, and I committed to following their instructions. So, so if you have that reference or attraction power, people like you, or you're an expert, you're a recognized expert. People are going to commit to doing what you want them to do. Then the next level here, we have that legitimate or status power. So this is the person that has the title of manager, supervisor, team lead, executive. They have legitimate and status power. And then they have another one is the power to give rewards. So you're going to get compliance usually from these people. The manager comes in and says, you have to do this. People are just going to do it because they were told they have to do it, or they have to do it to get that reward, right? You don't have the commitment to the cause. You just have the commitment to get the manager off your back, or the commitment to get that reward, whatever it is. It might be a pizza party on Friday. It might be going home early on Friday. Go home at lunch on Friday. Early out kind of thing. Could be all sorts of different rewards, but you're just going to get people who work to that level and stop. They're not committed. They're not resisting. They're just like, okay, that's what I got to do to get this. That's what they'll do. And then you finally have that coercive power. So this is the do it or else kind of power. I mean, your parents might have done it. They might have said, because I said so. You're going to get some resistance. A little kid might say, why? And they may actually want to know why, but they may not have the thought process yet to understand why. But they're still going to ask because it's, they like the reaction you're giving them or whatnot. But we always have resistance to this. So think of the protests or riots that happened not this past summer, but the previous summer or whenever it happened, George Floyd, right? Think about what the police were telling the protesters or the rioters to do. Pretty much go home, right? The people resisted that kind of power. The police started throwing tear gas and other chemicals to disperse the crowd, irritants. And some people still stayed. Some people had gas masks and other things, but people didn't leave. And the same thing with that freedom convoy that happened in Canada. They were protesting or rioting, whatever you want to call it, against certain practices of the government. They were resistant to the orders of their federal government up there, who enacted emergency powers to get them to be able to remove those truckers from that one bridge between the United States and Canada. People resisted. I think only, was it 2 days ago or something, they finally got everybody away. Was that the best route? Probably not. I'll just go ahead and say no, it wasn't the best route, because that might inspire things here in the United States. I heard Maryland is starting to prepare for something to happen in Maryland along the same kind of way. Who knows what's going to happen? I'll be nice and comfortable in my home watching it on TV, because I don't need to be out there in that. And my wife and son don't need to be out there in that. So we're going to be home. But that coercive power is usually what we push back against, that resistance, right? Okay, so we've covered chapters 12, 13, and 14. Let's talk about the project portfolio. So this is the last part of the project portfolio, and this was probably the easiest part. So we have the issue log. When we identify issues, we put them on a log. So go ahead and make up something, put it on there. The change management request, there's templates for all of these. The change management request, make up one. That way you guys can have the experience of filling one out, but also have someone else on your team look at it and see, is there enough detail? Communication plan. This one is, we've talked about communications almost throughout this entire course, but how are we communicating with people? Are we going to do it by email? Remember our stakeholder analysis? Well, our stakeholders, how do we talk to our stakeholders? Are we going to send emails? Are we going to send faxes? Are we going to send postal mail? Are we going to do meetings? How are we going to talk to them? And we'll put that into here. And once, like I said, there's a template, so you guys don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just pretty much got to fill in the blanks, almost. You'll have to type some things, but yeah. Project status template. Your projects have been a great thing that I hope you guys actually get to do. But the template, imagine you're, let's say, 2 to 3 months into your project, or let's say halfway into your project. Fill out some status on it. That way you can get that practice in and see what it looks like. And that's it. Put it all into one file. I prefer PDF, but if you upload it to eCampus, that way I can grade it. It will be great. And once again, if you guys have questions on the portfolio, send me an email. And the last thing, I said that I made a mistake when it came to the syllabus. And the mistake is about the final exam. So when I was making the schedule, I made the assumption that there was a final exam week for this half term. I usually teach 16-week terms, so the half term just threw me off. There is no final exam week for these 8-week courses. So in light of that, and because of your schedules, we're already this far into the semester, I don't want to screw up your schedules, because you guys might have plans and trying to make an adjustment like this last minute, essentially, is not fair to you. I'm going to go ahead and cancel the final exam. I'll send out a questionnaire about the course in kind of place of it, but you guys will get full credit for the final exam in the system. I'll be updating that in the next day or two. So you'll see full credit in your final exam column in the gradebook. Or actually, you guys get to see it as a row. I see it as a column. But yeah, the questionnaire will be about the course. What can be better? What was good? What can be gotten rid of? What do you think of the textbook? That kind of questions. Yeah. And, like I said, my screw up of thinking there was a final exam week is your gain, because, the class is over on March 4th. So my schedule of March 7th through the 11th for your final exam doesn't exist. So therefore, I'm not making you guys jump through any hoops. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel that final exam. And I hope you guys have learned a lot in this course. Of course, I'll be doing one more video for next week. I'll cover the reading material you're covering this week, and also the material you'd cover in week 8. But essentially, when I looked at the schedule, this week is the last actual assignments for the course. And looking at grades, you guys are finishing strong, and I'm very impressed. Especially this is the first time running this course, so I do need your feedback so that future students can learn better or have a better experience. Hopefully I gave you guys a good experience, but you know, everything can get better. There's that process of continuous improvement, right? So I'm looking forward to your feedback. I'll send it out as a probably a Google Doc or Google Form survey, and I'll make it anonymous so you guys can put in your own feedback as you see fit, and that way I can't trace it back to you or anything like that. And yeah, I really would appreciate your honest feedback. So that was week 7, and those changed the syllabus. If you guys have any questions, send me an email. I look forward to you guys having a successful semester, and it's been great on my end. I hope it's been great on your end. So look forward to doing one more video for you guys next week. And until then, you guys have a great one. All right. See you later.